For years we thought we understood Kody Brown. We thought we had him figured out as a failed husband, a distant father, a man clinging desperately to patriarchy long after it stopped serving him. We labeled him selfish, arrogant, emotionally unavailable. But what if all of that was just the surface? What if the truth is darker, colder, and far more calculated than anyone wanted to admit? What if Kody Brown isn't simply a bad partner, but something far more unsettling? A collector, a hoarder of emotional trophies, a man who keeps pieces of the people who leave him and redistributes them like spoils of war. This theory doesn't start with shouting or confrontation. Starts quietly, almost invisibly, with a photograph that should have meant nothing. A fleeting image buried in a social media post, easy to scroll past without a second thought. A young woman posing confidently, relaxed, smiling. At first glance, it looks harmless, ordinary. But Sister Wives fans are not casual viewers. They are archivists. They are historians. They remember what the show itself tries to forget. And someone noticed something that didn't belong. It wasn't her expression. It wasn't who she was standing next to. It was what was resting against her skin. Around her neck hung a necklace that felt wrong. Not trendy. Not new. Not something pulled off a modern rack or gifted casually. Had weight. History. The kind of weight you don't see but feel. The metal looked aged. Not distressed for style but worn by time. The design wasn't random. The turquoise, or perhaps the specific gold filigree, carried a visual signature that instantly triggered recognition in the fandom's collective memory. This wasn't just jewelry. This was déjà vu. People zoomed in. Screenshots were taken. Old episodes were reopened. And suddenly, the internet felt that familiar chill, the one that comes when something buried refuses to stay buried. Because we had seen that necklace before. Years ago. Around the neck of a woman Kody Brown has spent the last several seasons trying to erase. Christine. The realization hit like a slow-motion collision. This wasn't speculation pulled from thin air. This was pattern recognition. The curve of the pendant. The way the chain sat on the collarbone. The oxidation of the metal. The placement of the stone. Details that were never meant to matter until suddenly they mattered more than anything. The fandom didn't just see similarity. They saw identity. And once you accept that possibility, once you allow yourself to consider that this necklace once belonged to Christine Brown, the entire family dynamic transforms into something far more sinister. Because then this isn't about fashion. This isn't about coincidence. This is about power. If this necklace is Christine's, then we are no longer watching the aftermath of a plural marriage falling apart. We are watching the redistribution of identity. The stripping of history from one woman and the deliberate placement of it onto another. Specifically onto a child who still obeys. And that's where the theory becomes terrifying. The original wives didn't just leave Kody. They left behind years of shared life, shared struggle, shared symbolism. And Kody, according to this theory, didn't let those symbols go. He kept them, like relics, like proof of ownership. And now, as his family contracts and his circle of loyalty tightens, he appears to be regifting those relics to the only children who remain fully under his control. Jewelry becomes the language. A necklace becomes a message. And the message is clear. Loyalty is rewarded. Disobedience is erased. But before anyone dismisses this as fan fiction, before anyone laughs it off as internet overreach, we need to talk about precedent. Because Kody Brown has already shown us exactly how he treats symbolic objects when a relationship no longer serves him. The ring. The melted ring. Mary's wedding ring was not just removed. It wasn't quietly returned or respectfully set aside. Kody took the physical symbol of their covenant and destroyed it. He subjected it to fire until it no longer resembled the promise it once represented. He erased it. He turned commitment into liquid metal. And he did it deliberately. That wasn't closure. That was dominance. A man who melts a wedding ring is a man who believes he owns the meaning of relationships. A man who believes he has the right not just to leave, but to annihilate. To rewrite history by force. And once you understand that, once you internalize what that act really meant, the necklace stops feeling far-fetched and starts feeling inevitable. Because to Kody, objects aren't sentimental. They're leverage. In his mind, once a wife becomes disloyal, everything connected to her becomes contaminated. And once he removes that contamination, by destroying it or reclaiming it, the object becomes his again. Neutral, clean, ready to be reassigned. And reassignment is where the move comes in. The chaos of Las Vegas to Flagstaff wasn't just disorganized. It was fertile ground for disappearance. Boxes mislabeled, items misplaced, stress clouding memory. In that confusion, things didn't just get lost. They got absorbed. And according to whispers circulating close to production, some of those boxes meant for Christine and Mary, ended up somewhere they were never supposed to be. In Kody's possession, a jewelry box in particular stands out in these reports. One Christine believed was gone forever, lost in the shuffle, left behind in the rush. But what if it wasn't lost? What if it was claimed? Because Kody doesn't see this as theft. In his narrative, he paid for everything. The houses, cars, the jewelry. The family pot was always his money. So when a wife leaves, why should she take his assets with her? In his mind, reclaiming those items isn't cruelty. It's accounting. And that belief that everything belongs to him changes everything. If Kody truly believes these objects are his to redistribute, then the necklace wasn't stolen. It was reassigned, promoted, elevated, given new purpose. Which brings us back to the girl in the photograph. Breanna. This wasn't a casual hand-me-down. This wasn't a forgotten trinket pulled from a drawer. This was a coronation. A ceremony without witnesses. A quiet moment where meaning was transferred and hierarchy was reinforced. In Kody's world, symbolism matters. He doesn't do anything without theater. So imagine the scene behind closed doors. The seriousness, the framing, the narrative he spins. Breanna is told she is the example, the loyal one, the obedient one. In a family he believes collapsed because women and children stopped respecting him, she represents success. And the necklace becomes a medal, not a reminder of Christine, but a replacement for her. By placing that necklace around Breanna's neck, Kody isn't just rewarding loyalty. He's rewriting the hierarchy. He's signaling that Breanna now holds a position once occupied by Christine, not as a wife, but as a valued extension of his authority. And the most chilling part, Robyn knows. There is no universe in which Robyn Brown doesn't recognize that necklace. She saw it for years. She sat across from Christine while she wore it. She watched her cry in it, laugh in it, fight for her marriage in it. Robyn's silence isn't ignorance, it's strategy. And silence in this family is power. Part 2. Robyn's silence is where this story curdles from disturbing into something genuinely chilling. Silence in the Brown family has never been passive, has always been strategic. Robyn Brown does not miss details. She catalogs them. She tracks assets, emotions, alliances. For over a decade, she sat shoulder to shoulder with Christine, watching her wear that necklace through pregnancies, through family gatherings, through confessionals where Christine tried to convince herself, and the audience, that she was still happy. Robyn saw that jewelry up close. She saw it when Christine was still the heart of the family, still the emotional glue holding everyone together. So when that same piece appears years later on Robyn's own daughter, the idea that Robyn didn't recognize it collapses instantly. Which means this wasn't an accident. If Robyn allowed this to happen, then this was a power play so quiet it almost slipped past unnoticed. Almost. Letting Breanna wear Christine's jewelry isn't just about reclaiming an object. It's about rewriting legacy. It's about signaling that the era of the original wives is over. Not just emotionally but materially. Their presence is not only gone, it has been absorbed. Their identity hasn't been preserved or respected. It's been harvested. In this context, Breanna isn't just wearing a necklace. She's wearing a message. And that message is aimed at everyone who used to matter. But what does Breanna know? That question splits this story into two equally grim paths, and neither of them leads anywhere good. In the first version, Breanna is completely unaware. She's been fed a revised history, a sanitized narrative where the past has been neatly edited. Maybe she was told her father bought it recently. Maybe she was told it was vintage, special, rare. She feels chosen, loved. And in a household where affection is conditional and unevenly distributed, that feeling is intoxicating. She posts the photo because she feels confident, admired, validated. She has no idea that she's wearing someone else's memories against her skin. In this version, Breanna is a pawn, used as a display case for her father's dominance, paraded in public as proof that loyalty still exists somewhere in the ruins of his former family. She doesn't know she's holding a live wire. She doesn't know that this necklace is radioactive, that it carries grief, loss, and the residue of a woman who fought for years to be loved by the same man now praising her. But then there's the other version, the darker one, the version where Breanna knows exactly what she's wearing. By this point, lines have already been drawn in the Brown family. The cliques are obvious. Robyn's children versus the OG kids. Loyalty versus abandonment. The favored versus the forgotten. If Breanna knows that necklace once belonged to Christine, then wearing it becomes an act of open provocation. Declaration. A flag planted firmly in enemy territory. It says, I have dad. Don't. I have what your mother lost. You don't. In that scenario, the necklace stops being jewelry and becomes a weapon. And the targets are not the ex-wives alone. They are the children. Isabel. Wynn. Truly. Savannah. Children who already live with the knowledge that their father chose another family. Children who watched him skip surgeries, miss milestones, and withhold affection while pouring time, energy, and resources into Robyn's household. Imagine scrolling through social media and seeing that image. Imagine recognizing your mother's necklace on the neck of the girl who took your father's place in your life. That kind of pain doesn't scream. It sinks in quietly and corrodes everything it touches. This is where the cruelty becomes impossible to ignore. Because this isn't happening in a vacuum. This necklace doesn't exist on its own. It exists alongside empty gestures and glaring absences. Kody gave Isabel nothing when she faced spinal surgery. He wouldn't travel. He wouldn't show up. He framed his absence as responsibility, safety, as logic. But logic never stopped him from showing up where he wanted to be. Savannah spent Christmas sidelined, watching from a distance as gifts piled up elsewhere. Truly grew up learning early that attention was scarce and conditional. Meanwhile, loyalty was rewarded lavishly, not just with presents, but with proximity, approval, and emotional investment. Against that backdrop, the necklace becomes unbearable. It's not expensive. Doesn't need to be. Its value isn't monetary. Its value is symbolic. It's Christine's past, draped over Breanna's present. A physical reminder that what the OG wives and kids lost didn't disappear. It was redistributed. And if Christine sees it, really sees it, this stops being gossip and becomes a violation. Because Christine doesn't have to wonder. She knows her jewelry. She knows the clasp she fidgeted with during hard conversations. She knows the weight of it on her chest during years she tried to convince herself that endurance was the same thing as happiness. Seeing it again wouldn't spark nostalgia. It would trigger something closer to grief mixed with rage. Not because she wants the necklace back, but because it confirms something she's likely felt for years, that nothing she shared with Kody was ever truly safe from him. This is the moment where the theory crosses a line. From emotional manipulation into emotional looting. Kody didn't just take love. He didn't just take time. He didn't just take fatherhood away from certain children. If this theory holds, he took memories. He took history. And he repurposed it to punish those who left and reward those who stayed. Legally, it's murky. Ethically, it's horrifying. Christine and Mary could fight it, but Kody knows they won't. He counts on their exhaustion. He knows they want peace more than confrontation. He knows they're done being pulled into his orbit. And that's what gives him confidence. He operates in the space where cruelty isn't criminal, where harm is emotional rather than actionable. If confronted, he would laugh. He would deny. He would gaslight. He would say it was his to give. That he bought it. That Christine is imagining things. And the worst part. He knows that saying those words hurts more than any court ruling ever could. Because denial is his favorite weapon. This necklace, if it truly is Christine's, doesn't just mark the end of marriages. It marks the end of any illusion that co-parenting, mutual respect, or emotional closure was ever possible. You cannot share space, emotional or physical, with a man who takes your past and wears it like a trophy. And we're not done yet. Because once you zoom out, once you stop focusing on the necklace itself, a much darker pattern emerges, one that has defined Kody Brown for decades. He treats people exactly the way he treats objects. When they serve him, he displays them proudly. When they resist, he diminishes them. When they leave, he destroys or repurposes what's left behind. And that pattern doesn't stop with wives. It follows the children. Once you recognize the pattern, it becomes impossible to unsee it. The necklace is not an isolated incident. It is not a one-off lapse in judgment or a strange coincidence blown out of proportion by an overzealous fandom. It is a symbol in a much larger system. A system Kody Brown has been building and perfecting for decades. A system where love is conditional, loyalty is transactional, and disobedience is punished not just with distance, but with erasure. Kody doesn't simply abandon people. He reassigns their value. When a wife is compliant, she is elevated, praised, showcased. When she questions him, she is diminished, ignored, reframed as difficult or disloyal. And when she leaves, that is when the real punishment begins. Because leaving doesn't just threaten his authority, it exposes it. So he retaliates the only way he knows how. By reclaiming what he believes is his and rewriting the story so that he is always the victim. That is why the melted ring matters so much. It wasn't impulsive. It was ceremonial. It was a message sent not just to Mary, but to everyone watching. It said, "I decide when this meant something, and I decide when it stops." That same logic applies to every object, every memory, every shared moment. In Kody's mind, relationships are contracts he controls unilaterally. When the other party walks away, he doesn't accept the loss. He collects damages. And now, those damages appear to be decorating his new inner circle. This is where Breanna's role becomes tragically clear. Whether she knows it or not, she has been positioned as proof. Proof that loyalty still exists. Proof that obedience is rewarded. Proof that Kody Brown is still the center of someone's universe. That's why the gesture had to be visible. That's why it couldn't stay hidden in a drawer. A necklace locked away would mean nothing. A necklace worn publicly, photographed, shared. That is a declaration. It says, "I still have power." But power like this always comes with a cost. And the cost is usually paid by the person wearing the crown. Because here is the truth no one in that house is saying out loud. Breanna is not special because she is loved. She is special because she is useful. She reinforces Kody's narrative that the family didn't fall apart because of him. It fell apart because others failed him. As long as she plays that role, as long as she remains compliant, she is protected, celebrated, adorned. But the moment she steps out of line, the moment she asserts independence, she will learn the same lesson the others did. The favor is temporary. That necklace isn't an heirloom. Salish. Look at the women who wore it before her. Look at where they are now. Mary, reduced to a ghost in her own marriage, clinging to scraps of validation until she finally accepted what Kody had been telling her for years without saying it directly. Christine, slowly suffocating under the weight of being needed but never chosen, finally realizing that love without respect is just endurance. They were once adorned too. They were once held up as proof of Kody's success as a patriarch. Until they weren't. Breanna may feel chosen today, but choice in this family is conditional. It always has been. The necklace she wears is not a promise of permanence. It's a warning disguised as a gift. It marks her as someone currently favored, not someone forever safe. And while all of this is happening inside the walls of the McMansion, the emotional fallout ripples outward, hitting the children who were left behind. They don't need confirmation. They don't need a DNA test or a formal announcement. They already know. They know by absence, by silence, by missed calls and empty chairs. And now, potentially, by seeing pieces of their mother's lives worn by someone else as though they were disposable. This is how trauma is inherited, not through dramatic confrontations, but through small, brutal reminders that you were replaceable, that your history can be picked up, reassigned, and displayed without your consent, that your pain is someone else's reward. If Isabel sees that necklace and recognizes it, the wound cuts deeper than favoritism. It confirms that her father didn't just choose another family. He chose to cannibalize the old one to build the new. He didn't move on. He stripped it for parts. And for a child who already internalized the message that she wasn't worth showing up for, that realization is devastating. This is why the theory has struck such a nerve. It's not really about whether the necklace is Christine's. It's about what it represents if it is. It represents a man who cannot tolerate losing control, who responds to abandonment by asserting ownership, who uses objects as extensions of his ego and people as vessels for his narrative. And that brings us to the most unsettling possibility of all. What if this is just the beginning? What if this isn't the only piece of the past that has been quietly absorbed into the present? What if there are other items, rings, pendants, keepsakes, already redistributed, already reframed, already worn by people who don't fully understand what they're carrying? If the necklace passed unnoticed for this long, how many other symbols have already been reassigned without anyone catching it? Kody believes time is on his side. He believes the public forgets. He believes memories fade. But the internet is an archive, and Sister Wives fans are relentless. Every season is preserved. Every accessory catalogued, every detail remembered, and once people start looking, they don't stop. This is how empires crumble, not with explosions but with receipts. Because if Christine or Mary ever confirms this, even indirectly, the narrative Kody has worked so hard to maintain collapses. The image of the wounded patriarch gives way to something far more damning. A man who punishes women for leaving by looting their history and weaponizing it against their children. And that leaves Breanna standing in the center of a story she didn't write but is now inseparable from. She may think she's wearing a symbol of love. The world is starting to see it as a shackle. The moment this image reaches Christine's screen, everything changes. Not in a loud, explosive way, but in the quiet, devastating way that only recognition can bring. Christine doesn't need anyone to explain it to her. She doesn't need side-by-side comparisons or fan breakdowns. She knows her things. She knows the weight of that necklace, the way it sat against her chest during years she tried to convince herself that staying was the same as being loved. She knows the clasp she fumbled with absent-mindedly during confessions when she was forcing a smile for the cameras while something inside her was already breaking. If she sees it, truly sees it, there will be no doubt. And in that moment, the last illusion dies. Because then it isn't about a relationship that failed. It's about a boundary that was violated. Christine has already walked away from the marriage. She has already rebuilt her life. She has already proven she doesn't need Kody Brown to thrive. But this would be different. This would confirm that even after she left, even after she removed herself from his control, he still reached into her past and took something that wasn't his to give.